for us, and then we'll jump into Second Timothy. Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the opportunity to worship you just now. God, your name is beautiful. It's powerful. We celebrated this past week. We celebrated Easter, your resurrection. God, I pray that as we just come here tonight and just open your word, that you just continue to stir our affections for you. Help us to see how wonderful, how powerful you truly are. And God, as we think about finishing out this semester, finishing out this school year, finishing out maybe our college careers, God, I just ask that you help us finish well. This passage tonight, help us to just see you, strive for you, and model the life of Paul, just the way that you live. Help us to do that, God. Praise in Jesus' name. So in November of 2008, I ran my first half marathon. I was a sophomore at Marshall University, and for various reasons, I wasn't playing soccer that fall. And so I needed something to push myself. I needed something to kind of work towards. And just to kind of give you just an insight into just the way my mind particularly operates. I woke up one morning, I was laying in bed, I thought popped in my head, hey, I'm going to run a half marathon. And so I got out of bed, put my shoes on, I began training that morning. And what I specifically remember about that race, about the race itself, is that I kind of had two separate goals in mind. In one sense, I had a particular pace that I had been training at. So one of my goals was to run at that pace the entire race and finish at that pace. And then in a separate sense, I had never run a race of that sort of distance before. So another goal was simply just completion, just get to the finish line. So again, in one sense, I wanted to be competitive, and in another sense, I just wanted to finish. So those were two of my separate yet somewhat conflicting goals that I had developed. Well, as I was running, I was wearing my watch, and I noticed that about the time I got to the halfway point of the race, fatigue was beginning to kind of kick in, and I was beginning to slow down. I was looking at my watch, and my pace was getting slower and slower. And for me, it's probably this way for a lot of people, but at least for me, the halfway points of races are usually the most strenuous for me. Like I said, that's when fatigue typically kicks in. That's when all those mental barriers and obstacles that you have to fight through of just recognizing or just the various thoughts that come in as far as, like, am I ever going to finish? Can I get to the finish line? I can't feel my legs. My muscles are hurting. All that stuff that you have to fight through. Everything in you is telling you to quit, but in order to finish, you have to push through. Well, I justified in my mind at that time that if I just ran comfortably at that slower pace, then I would be fine. And then over the last couple of miles, I would just pick up my pace and make up my time. Which let's just be honest, that never happens. You get to the end of the race, your legs are tired, you're not going to feel like sprinting the last couple of miles. So that never happens. But either way, I just continue to press on. I'll never forget this. The way that the race finishes at Marshall University is you come to the football stadium and you come down one of the ramps into the stadium, and you run one of the sidelines, and you are handed a football in which you run the last 100 yards with. And so here I come. I enter into the stadium. I'm sprinting down the ramp. I run in, and you see everybody who's finished ahead of you. I run in, and there's like several dozen other runners who are faster than me, who are like passed out on the field, or you have like these guys over here getting massages, and you run in, and they hand you the football. And I just remember coming across the line and really kind of having mixed emotions. I came across the line, and in one sense, I was excited. I finished my first half marathon. I completed my goal. I finished the race that I set out to run. But then, in a separate sense, I was almost disappointed because I crossed the finish line. I still had energy left. I almost kind of envisioned crossing the finish line and being passed out like that guy over there. Or I had thoughts in my head of like, why am I not as tired as what I thought I would be? Why don't I have a cramp like that guy? And really, I think there's really only two possible ways to answer that question. Either one, I was in far superior shape than all the runners who had finished ahead of me. My body is built for longer distances better than everyone else. That's one option. I can tell you that's not the correct option. Or two, I had just not pushed myself as hard as everyone else. I can still think back to the halfway point where I began to fall off pace, became content with just running at a comfortable pace, just slowing down. Still to this day, the competitor in me still reminds myself every time I think about the race, I could have ran faster. I could have ran faster. I could have ran faster. In many ways, I look back at that race, sometimes with disappointment, because I know that there were times that I could have pushed myself harder. Again, around the halfway point, I became content with a slower pace, and I never made up the time. As I crossed the finish line, I was disappointed that I hadn't finished as well as what I had hoped. Now, one thing that race did do for me, and this truly did change my life, was that it gave me just a perspective on finishing. Ever since that day, I've always had that image seared into my mind as I think about the other things that I do in life, the other seasons that I live through, the other races that I run. I just constantly want to be sure that I finish well, that I finish strong. I don't want to be content with going at a slower pace. I want to push myself hard until the finish. So really, my goal tonight is just impress that same idea on each of you. For all of you, as you came in tonight, you were talking about it. Like you're in the final stretch, right? You're in the final mile or two of your college semester, of this entire school year. For some of you, it's the final sprint of your college career. You can almost see the finish line of it. Get past all those applications, right? Get past those exams. Get past those papers. For others of you, you may be coming to the end of a season with sports or with music or maybe even just relationships as you realize that you're not going to be here next semester. So you realize that these are the last few weeks on campus. Whatever scenario you find yourself in, whatever race you find yourself running, what I want to challenge you with tonight is a challenge to finish well. And I pray that this passage would help you, would help myself see how to do that. So as we've been studying 2 Timothy all semester, tonight we come to the final mile marker. Our focus tonight is going to be in chapter 4, specifically on verses 6 through 8, but just kind of get us the context. I want us to look at verses 1 through 8. And again, as we approach this text, again, I just want us to reflect on the fact that these are Paul's final words. Now, he's also reaching the end of his life. So there's much that we can learn about finishing well. 2 Timothy chapter 4, we'll start in verse 1, and we'll read verse 8. It says this: I charge you, in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who is to judge the living and the dead, and by his appearing in his kingdom, preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off in the myths. As for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. Verse 6. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. So tonight, as we look at Paul's words and we consider his life, I just want to provide you with 6 keys or 6 steps to finishing well. Again, whether it be finishing this current chapter of your life or finishing the next chapter of your life, or whatever your case may be, there are 6 steps that you can apply to ensure that you'll finish well. The first step that I want you to see is to live your life in worship of Christ. The first step is to live your life in worship of Christ. Paul writes of his life in verse 6, saying of it that I am already being poured out as a drink offering. This analogy that he chooses comes from the Old Testament sacrificial system, where one of the ways that the Israelites would worship God was pouring out about a quart of wine on the altar as part of the sacrifice. According to Numbers chapter 15, this drink offering would be paired with the burnt offering of a bull or a lamb or some other animal from the flock. And it would be used to create a pleasing aroma to the Lord. So that was the intent of the drink offering. Well, here, as Paul looked back over his life, he describes it as being a drink offering. He wants his life just to be a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You yourself are in a stage of life where you are making a lot of major life-altering decisions. You've declared a major. You're getting an education. You're preparing for a career. Some of you are looking at other schools, whether it be graduate school or maybe a school that you're thinking about transferring to. Some of you are in relationships where you're considering things such as marriage. You guys are in a stage where you are making major life-altering decisions. Let me ask you this. What will be the basis for those decisions? What will be the determining factor for which decision you'll choose? In Romans chapter 15, Paul clues us into how his decisions were made. He writes, starting in verse 18 of Romans 15, he says, "For I will not venture to speak of anything except what Christ has accomplished for me, to bring the Gentiles to obedience by word and deed, by the power of signs and wonders, by the power of the Spirit of God, so that from Jerusalem all the way around to Illyricum, I have fulfilled the ministry of the gospel of Christ." So the commission that God gave Paul back in Acts chapter 9, verse 15, was to carry the gospel to the Gentiles. And he's here several decades later. This same commission is still governing Paul's life. His decisions on where to travel or who to preach to are being governed by that commission. And he continues in verse 20. He says, "And thus I make it my ambition to preach the gospel, not where Christ has already been named, unless I build on someone else's foundation. But as it is written, those who have never been told of him will see, and those who have never heard will understand." So the mission that God has given him, and this ambition that Paul is talking about, and that has been developed in his heart, was to preach Christ where he's not yet been named. This is what we refer to as frontier missions. This is what Paul was called to. And he continues in verse 22. He says, "And this is the reason why I have so often been hindered from coming to you." In other words, I've wanted to come to you. That's what he's telling the church of Rome. I wanted to come, but I couldn't. Because of this ambition, God commissioned me to preach the gospel to the Gentiles, to the nations. And that was my top priority. That is what governed all of my decisions. I would love for some of you to become missionaries. I can't tell you how excited I get every time I think about Kenny. Some of you guys remember Kenny, who graduated from here, sat in these chairs 2 years ago, from a Buddhist background, came to know Christ, was headed off to medical school, decided last minute to cancel plans, and now he's planning churches in an unreached country over in Asia. He's an example of someone who's pouring out his life as a drink offering. But I would also be equally excited if some of you become doctors, and some of you become teachers, and some of you become nurses. platform that you end up getting, I want to see you make much of Christ there. That's what it means to pour out your drink, pour out your life as a drink offering. It means to align your ambition with the commission of God for your life. And to use the platform that He has given you to make much of Him. So that's the first step. In order to finish well, we must live our lives in worship of Christ. The second step to finishing well is to live your life in urgency for Christ. Live your life in urgency for Christ. Paul says in verse 6 again, "For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come." Again, this drink offering analogy is one that Paul has already chosen to use earlier in his life. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 17, but in that case, he was looking to the potential future. He was looking ahead on the horizon and seeing that hardship and death were soon awaited him. But they weren't quite yet imminent. He said there in Philippians 2:17, even if I am to be poured out as a drink offering, upon sacrificial offering of your faith, I'm glad and I rejoice with you all. So again, he's saying, even if this were to happen, even if this were to come about, sometime down the road, but here, in this passage, he recognizes a death imminent. We learn in this letter that Paul is in prison. He's cold. He faces various forms of discouragement. And now he uses this analogy in the present tense, saying, I am already being poured out as a drink offering. The pouring out is happening now. And he also adds, and the time of my departure has come. The word that Paul chooses to use here for the word departure is a word that the readers would have understood and would have associated with sailors who were pulling up their anchor or soldiers who were packing up their tents. In both cases, they were preparing to go home. Likewise, as Paul is nearing the end of his life, he is preparing to go home. He is preparing to finally go home and meet his Savior. But there's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of urgency in his message because for Paul, Timothy is his successor. In his final letter to Timothy, there's so much that he wants to make sure that Timothy understands. Again, I think back to my time in college, my final semester of playing soccer, where there was urgency in my life like never before. I knew that at the end of the spring semester, I would be done with the Marshall soccer team forever, and there were conversations that I wanted to have with various players and with my coaching staff that I knew that I would never get again. Particularly with my coach, I had tried on multiple occasions just to share the gospel with him. Every single time, he's kind of rejected it. Look, God, I don't want to hear it. So, there in his office, after the season, having my final meeting with him of the spring, he was at his desk over here. I remember the assistant coach was sitting across from me, and I was sitting in a chair by the door. At the end of the conversation, the coach looked at me and said, thanks for your contributions to the soccer team. We're finished. I remember getting up and turning and beginning to walk out the door. And then thinking to myself, I'm not finished. Because I had several dozen people who were praying for that conversation. So I sat back and I said, no, I have one more thing to say. I just laid out the gospel. And I just told him, look, I've been trying to explain the gospel to you over and over and over again. I just want to make sure. I do not want to walk out this door and just have a feeling of regret, of never having the opportunity to share the gospel with you. So here it is. I wish that I could say that my coach received Christ that day. It's not what happened. In fact, the way it ended is my assistant coach eventually interrupted and said, look, God, you're a good kid, you got a good story, but every good story comes to an end, and today's your end. That was it. And I walked out the door. But I left there knowing that I had shared the gospel at least once with every single one of my teammates, every single one of my coaches. I left there knowing that I had done everything I could. The beauty of being in college is that at least I feel that developing urgency is so much easier. Moses prays for urgency in Psalm 90, verse 12, when he prays, teach us to number our days. If we could just know when our last day was, it would be so much easier to just have urgency. For you as college students, in one sense, you know when your last day is. You know when the semester ends. You know when you're going to graduate. You know when your last day on campus is going to be. I want to encourage you in your final days to be urgent. Number the days that you have left. Seek out those conversations that you know you need to have. Be bold with the gospel and don't leave any regrets. That's the second thing we see in Paul's command. Live your life in urgency for Christ. The third step is to live your life with vigilance for Christ. Live your life with vigilance for Christ. In verse 7, Paul employs a list of sports analogies. And he starts off saying, I have fought the good fight. To live your life with vigilance simply means to live your life in such a way that you are aware of the various dangers and distractions that you come across. You're especially keen to avoid them. In a fight, you're watching for it. You're anticipating your opponent's moves. And with that last point, I said that I feel for college students that it's easier to be urgent. Well, with this one, I would say it's probably harder. I say that because for many of you, this is your community. Just the perimeter of this campus is almost like a wall to your life. This is basically the confines of your life right now, and you rarely find yourself thinking of anything outside of these walls, right? You spend hours and hours and hours in the library. You're bogged down by schoolwork and studying and clinical hours and practice, soccer practice or choir. And you rarely have time to think of anything else. For some of you, this is all that you see. Yet at the same time, let me remind you that there's a war going on out there. You are right in the middle of it. There's a war going on all around us, and there's a constant battle going on for your soul and my soul. And it's so easily overlooked. It's so easily forgotten. You remember we talked a few weeks ago about how cracked the devil is. And don't put it past him. Try to make you think that he isn't real, or that he's not at work, or that he's not concerned with you. That he's not prowling around like a lion seeking to devour you, like 1 Peter 5:8 tells us. Now, that would be a victory for him, just to get you to think that he is not real, or that he's not present. He is real. College is an easy place to gravitate. You're living on your own. You have freedoms like you've never had before. You have your own computer that you can look at late at night with nobody else around. Nobody's going to find out about it. Remember that you're in a battle. Remember that you're in a war. The third step to ensuring that you finish well is to live your life with vigilance in Christ. Be fully aware of the war that's going on around you. Live your life. The fourth step is to live your life in submission to Christ. Live your life in submission to Christ. The next analogy that Paul employs in verse 7 is that of finishing the race. He says, I have finished the race. Now as I read this verse, I don't believe that Paul here is emphasizing Paul is not boasting in his own abilities to say, look what I've done. I have completed it. I have run the race. No, I think he's emphasizing the word race. That is to say, the course that I ran is the course that was laid out by my Lord. I followed the path. I stayed on the course. I didn't veer off. I finished the race. Now, for some of you, you are more concerned about the race that others are running than about the race that God has called you to. I heard a story one time about a little boy with autism. And he participated in his elementary school's field day. And during field day, many of you probably remember, they have various races, and one of the races that they have is a stack race. And so this little boy lines up with all the other kids, and his parents are on the sidelines. All the parents are there cheering their kids on. And they blow the horn, and everyone takes off. And here's this little boy way behind everybody else. But his parents are cheering him on to the finish. But once the race finishes, they make an announcement. They announce the top three. And much to his parents' surprise, they find out that their son has made the top three. Even though he finished behind everybody else, somehow he made the top three. So later on that day, they go to the award ceremony, and sure enough, they pull out their cameras, and their son is awarded first place. They're shocked, and they don't understand. So later on, they grab one of the teachers and said, look, our son, I think it was a mistake. He was behind everybody else. I'm not sure if it's a sympathy award, that you just wanted to give everyone a first place blue ribbon, or what this was about. And the parent just kind of, or the teacher just looked at the parent and said, no, he won. He's the only one who stayed in his lane. We laugh about that, but I think it's so easy to get caught up in comparing our lives to others. Well, this person acts this way, or they talk like this, or they dress like this. I want to be like them. Or this person knows so much about the Bible. They have all these Bible verses memorized. I'm just going to take a back seat and just let them lead this Bible study. Or we compare circumstances. Their life is easy. They don't understand what I'm going through. They don't have to deal with it. Stop comparing yourself to others. Run the race in the lane that God has put you in. Focus on staying in your lane. Because sometimes the course that we find ourselves running is not the course that we would necessarily chosen for ourselves. You have the loss of a parent, having to live with financial hardship, not getting the same opportunities that this person got. It just doesn't seem like an even playing field. Jesus understands. In the Garden of Gethsemane, as he inched closer to the cross, Jesus fell to his knees and cried out, "My Father, if it is possible, please let this cup pass from me." This isn't what he would have chosen. He understood the pain and the agony that were about to follow. Then he adds, "Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." He trusted in the wisdom and the goodness of his Father. And that submission is what brought you and I life. The Apostle John captures the essence of discipleship in the first of his epistles. In 1 John 2:6, he writes, "Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus walked." And it's the best verse on discipleship. 1 John 2:6. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus walked. If you want to live in Christ, then walk in the path that he walked. If you want to follow him, then follow the course that he laid out. If you want your life to truly count for something, then run the race that he ran. At the end of Paul's life, he was able to look back at his life and say, "I have finished the race. I have run the course that was laid out for me. I have followed the footsteps of my Savior." If you want to finish well, then that's the fourth step. Live your life in submission to Christ. The fifth step is to live your life in endurance for Christ. Live your life with endurance for Christ. If you've ever run an actual race, you know that it requires endurance. You know that it takes stamina. Likewise, relating it to the race that you're currently running right now, you know as well as I do that it is not. Many of you have accumulated thousands of hours in the library. You've pulled several dozen all-nighters to write papers or to prepare for exams. Some of you are nearing the end, and you can see the finish line. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Others of you are right in the middle, and it feels like this thing's never going to end. As I said earlier, I always found that physical races were the hardest in the middle, because that's typically for me when fatigue kicked in the worst. At the beginning of the race, you have all this adrenaline, and you're fired up and you're excited. And when you get to the end of the race, you can kind of sense the finish line is right there, and so you have the energy to push yourself to the end. But it's the middle where you really start to get tired. You question whether or not you're ever going to finish. And I think that's true for the race of life as well. Paul concludes verse 7 saying, I have kept the faith. I'm reflecting on this race of life that I've been running, this race to Christ. I've persevered. I've kept going. As I near the finish line, I've kept the faith. Now, there are times in this race, as I'm sure you know, where keeping the faith is easy. There are also times when keeping the faith is hard. There are times when the terrain is smooth and easy, and there are times when the terrain is rough. There are times when you're running through this race and it feels like a nice, easy jog, and then there's other times where it completely feels like an uphill battle. There are times when it's enjoyable because you're running with a group and your mind's preoccupied on other things. And there's also times when you feel like you're running all alone. You're not sure if you're going to make it. Paul says of his life, I have kept the faith. Listen to how Paul describes his life. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. It says, 5 times I received at the hand of the Jews the 40 lashes plus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger of rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. That's the easy life, right? Do you think that Paul's life was easy? Or do you think it required endurance? What about your life? What about this stage of life that you are in right now? In what ways do you need to run endurance? My encouragement, keep going. Keep pressing on through whatever you're going through right now. Keep following Christ. It's worth it, I promise. Because at the end, there's a crown. Live your life in endurance for Christ. And lastly, number 6, live your life in the victory of Christ. Live your life in the victory of Christ. Paul concludes in verse 8. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. And you and I, can live our lives in the victory of Christ because Christ has already won for us the crown. The crown, which is of infinite value, has already been purchased for us by the blood of Christ. When Christ came and he lived the life that we could not live, he died the death that we could not die, and he hung there on a cross on Calvary, a place that Blake showed us last week in the pictures. As he hung there on the cross, in his final moments, he declared, "It is finished." Meaning the crown has been purchased. It has been paid in full. Victory is now yours. We can live in the victory of Christ. And today we live in the realm of the already not yet. The kingdom that Christ has inaugurated, this first coming, is already here. It is not yet fully realized. John Piper writes of this. He said, many of its blessings are here to be enjoyed now, but many of them are not yet here. Some of its power is available now, but not all of it. Some of the curse and misery of this old age can be overcome now by the presence of the kingdom, but some of it cannot be. The decisive battle against sin and Satan and sickness and death has been fought and won by the King in his death and resurrection, but the war is not over. Sin must be fought. Satan must be resisted. Sickness must be prayed over and groaned under, and death must be endured until the second coming of the King and the consummation of his kingdom. Both now and forever, you and I live in the victory of Christ, no matter what you struggle with. feeling of inadequacy, thoughts of insecurity, struggles with a particular sin. You have been given the victory of Christ. If you are in Christ, your victory has been secured by Him. He is your righteousness. He is your strength. You can stand before God because Christ has said you could. And you can overcome sin by the power of the Spirit living in you. The sixth step, most important step of finishing well, is to live your life in the victory of Christ. As I approached the finish line during that race, and I saw all the other runners collapse there on the sidelines with no energy left to even stand. I finished with a bit of disappointment. Sure, I was excited that I had completed a half marathon, but I'd always envisioned, kind of coming to the finish line, just collapsing, no energy left, kind of dying on the spot. Not really dying, but no energy. When I get to the finish line of life, I want it to be different. When I reach the gates of heaven, when I get there, I want to collapse at the finish line, knowing that I had done everything in this life, everything that I could to bring honor and glory to Him. Whether it be the finish line of life, whether it be the finish line of just this next chapter of my life, I want to be able to say with Paul, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. I've been praying all year. You say that as well. As you come to a close in your semester, and for some of you, you come to a close in your college careers, I pray that you finish well. I pray that you live your life in worship of Christ. I pray that you live your lives with urgency for Christ. I pray that you live your life with vigilance for Christ. You live your lives in submission to Christ. That you live your lives with endurance for Christ. That you live your life in victory of Christ. Henceforth, there is laid up for you the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to you on that day. Not only to you, but also to all who have loved Him. Let me pray. Father, we come before you. We plead with you. I plead that you help us to finish well. These final 2 weeks of the school year, help these students to finish well. Help you and Rebecca, Malika, to finish well their senior year. Help others to finish well their semester, to finish school, to finish relationships well, to finish BCM. Father, help me to worship you. Help me to have urgency. Help me to have vigilance. Help me to submit to you. Give them endurance.